So, hello and welcome to the 1% podcast. Today we have Mr. Kamal Aggarwall. Myself and Kamal worked together about 2 years ago now. We finished up, and by all accounts, my account, I think Kamal did some amazing work on himself, was in a great place when we last spoke more officially like this. But I wanted to bring Kamal back on to speak today because 2 years on, he's been out in the wild on his own. And I think those kind of conversations are always really exciting because you can catch someone at the end of a process feeling pretty good about themselves. But equally, I think the most important thing about quote unquote good coaching is being able to see that and apply it in real life. And can we still thrive a chunk of time later? And yes, it's a great story for me and my business, to be totally transparent, but also I think it just shows you that if you do the work right and you work on yourself, you can be resilient and feel great in life. So I wanted to bring Kamal back on to talk about that, and he's very kindly taken some time out to do so. Kamal, before we jump off, do you want to just introduce yourself, who you are, a bit about you, what you do?
Absolutely. So professionally, I'm a tax director in the professional services industry. Been in the industry for coming on to 17 years now, I think. What takes up most of my time? Parent, amazing 7-year-old daughter, and husband to my amazing wife.
Nice. So let's jump off, Kamal. And like I said, I think let's rewind a couple of years into the past. You'd seen a couple of posts from colleagues that had worked with me, consumed a bit of my content on LinkedIn, decided to reach out for a chat over 2 years ago now. What was going on for you back then that you decided to reach out and have a conversation with somebody like me?
So I'd seen some your content from a colleague and a former colleague and a client. And really what was going on for me was I was in a position where life was actually quite good, but it just felt like I wasn't thriving. It just felt like I was sort of coasting along because I'd worked very, very hard to achieve a good work-life balance. I put in a lot of effort to get to that, but I felt I'd stopped putting in effort having reached a particular point. And I just wanted to get my mojo back, really, is probably the best description.
That's a pretty common narrative with the gents that I tend to work with. And I think I would probably challenge for a lot of people in life in general, which is, it's that the phrase I use, it's like, it's all great on paper, but, and then there's a but, right? And the but is, I don't feel quite as energized or healthy or, as up for life as I want to be. Maybe not as fulfilled as I'd like to be at work. And kind of nothing's necessarily on fire anywhere, but equally there's no spark or really, really loving what you're doing and where you're at. And I think in a way that can almost be more insidious because you can get stuck in a sort of a trap of just sort of bumbling along, but actually not fully fulfilled or content with life, right? And then underneath that, I guess the behaviors that are serving you or not serving you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what I suppose the process of working with you revealed. It kind of like, because you don't just focus on fitness, you don't just focus on mindset, you focus on the package.
Yeah.
That really kind of exposes you because it forces you to sort of push yourself in every area. And then again, as you know, Luke, when you push yourself in one area, things in other areas get better. And then you get to see the whole package working, and you get to see the areas that for me at least, that I needed to push on really hard to feel that fire again.
Yeah. Because I think often, especially with someone like yourself, Kamal, or a lot of the guys I work with, most of the guys I work with, the work they do is usually knowledge work, right? And so it's quite cerebral. It's quite, up here sort of focused. When I'm putting some head, by the way, for anyone listening. And that's great. And so I think we think a lot of our problems and issues can be thought out and rationalized and thought through. And to some degree, that's true. But equally, I think we need to have the right behaviors for ourselves set up. And I don't just mean fitness, but I mean generally, because if you're snoozing your alarm, you're dragging yourself out of bed after 3 times, you're straight on your phone stressing about work, not really paying that much attention to your missus, bit shorter with your kids because you're on your phone, grab something shitty to eat, look in the mirror, not that proud of what you see, throw some clothes on, roll out of bed, just about get the train to work, get through the door. I would challenge that's not going to be optimal, right? Now, if we then spin that around and go, right, you jump out of bed with energy, you've maybe done a bit of physical activity, lean over, give your missus a kiss, you're not on your phone at all, you're there present for your wife, kids, doing what they need, you look in the mirror feeling proud, your shirt fits well, you've had something healthy or not because of how you're eating, you walk through the door. Which version is going to perform better at work? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it sounds completely obvious, right? But then it's something I've been talking about a lot in the podcast and with the guys that I'm working with. It's like I don't know why, but we don't correlate that. Now, if you played those two sets of things out and it was an athlete trying to perform, on the track or, on the pitch or whatever, you'd be like, what the hell's he doing? Like, there's no fucking way he's going to, but why is it any different for us? Now, they're not the only thing, but there's a lot of low hanging fruit there where if we're taking ownership of our behaviors, our boundaries, how we manage our headspace, stress, sleep, exercise, that has a big impact on how we feel because your body and your head are linked. Now, it's not the only thing, and we worked on this as well, Kamal. There's deep thinking you need to do about where you're at, what's important, and that's all great. But I don't think that can be done from a place of those two split persons. Person A not got his shit together, person B has. Person B is going to be in a much better place to make decisions, look at his life rationally, and be, I guess, ultimately more empowered to think about what's important. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does actually, Luke. And actually, I was thinking about this a couple of days ago, in fact, and uh, around how things changed for me, like before and after the program. Because before
Yeah.
the program, I had very much an all or nothing mindset. That like I used to really like running in my early 30s, and I've done a marathon and had quite a few half marathons. But I don't have the time to go out and run 15 miles on a weekend like I used to. That's time away from my daughter. Um, so I think if I'm going out and doing a 3-mile run, it's not worth it. And then you think, so that's just flipping that kind of thinking and think, actually, at least I got up and I did 3 miles run is better than getting up and doing nothing.
Exactly. And I think that for me, that's a much more empowered mindset. And it's something that I try and promote a lot, as you know, as I like to work, but I think just conceptually in life, rather than focusing on what you can't do, looking at what you can do. And it might not be ego wise the thing that you'd like. Well, I used to be able to run half marathons, but you can't now. Oh, I can't run then. No, you don't have time to do a 15-mile run. You've got time to do a 3-mile one, and you will feel a shite load better after the end of that than not. And not only for the physicality aspect of the run, more so the self-esteem that you got up and did a run. Do you see what I mean? But that as a mindset can play out anywhere for anything, And I think if we're looking at what we can do and what we can control, and sometimes that's difficult in stressful situations, but ultimately there'll always be some juice you can squeeze, but then you're in control and you've got agency. When the opposite just feels disempowering.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so when I wake up and if I've overslept and I've got to do the school run, I'm not going to be able to do a 20 or 30-minute hit like I might have planned, but I can get down and do 15 push-ups. And that's just like obviously it's not the same as doing a 20-minute hit, but it's better than getting out of bed and doing nothing. It's just bringing that sort of thinking about what can you do? And then you apply that to other areas, like at work, I'm not going to be able to get that report done I wanted to get done today, but I can get all these other tasks done and free up some time. And it's just bringing that mindset everywhere.
Yeah, because in that scenario, it's, I can't do that. I can't finish that report, so I won't even start it. Well, could you write the header and have the difficult conversation you need to have for that? Okay, but if you start pulling the thread like that, you'll in my experience, the royal you will recognise there's lots of areas within your life where we actually have more control than we think we do. But often, like you said, there's like a mindset or a perfectionist mindset of, oh, actually, I guess the mindset of, if it's not perfect or it's not the absolute max I can do, what's the point? I won't bother at all. And so I think being able to breed a situation where you can go, well, I can do something rather than absolutely nothing. Well, that's ultimately, like I said before, much more empowering. The perfectionist kind of mindset, I got this off a client, Tony. He's been on the podcast as well. This analogy, I got it years ago, but I love it. And it's that kind of, also that sort of fuck it mentality, which is like you're driving down the road, oh shit, you get a puncture. So then you jump out and stab the other 3 tires. It's like, what on earth are you doing? Like, put the knife down, let's get out the puncture repair kit. But like that as a concept, it's the same as like, oh, well, I can't do the 50-mile run, so I won't bother. Well, what that does is keep you stuck. Whereas actually, if you recognise, well, I can do something instead, then ultimately you're making progress and you can move forward. And I think for a lot of guys, they can end up feeling stuck because they've got a standard or their ego doesn't allow them to do certain things. And if we were just to lower that a little bit, they recognise there's a whole world of opportunity, but we often can't see it because we're stuck at a place where actually I'm trying to achieve something that's not necessarily possible,
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just another example that's coming up is, I know we spoke about this when we worked together. One of the things I really like to do is write creative writing. And I hadn't done it for a long time because I was telling myself that unless I wrote something and won the Nobel Prize or was at the top of the bestseller list, what's the point of doing it? But, since working together, I think when I was asking you for advice, all right, I mean, you said to me, just pick up a pen and bloody write, isn't it? What's the and that's literally what I did, and I've written
Yeah.
a few short stories since then, and entered local competitions, and I haven't been shortlisted for a prize in any of them, but I'm quite comfortable saying that now. Whereas before, my ego would have stopped me from saying I entered a competition and didn't win first prize or didn't wasn't elevated to like the bestseller list. That's actually not entered them, but I enjoyed writing it, and I've shared it with a few people, and I've enjoyed discussing it with them, and so that's just it's much. I feel very comfortable saying that, and I feel so much happier for having picked up a pen and written.
Which is amazing. And ultimately, you won't get any better if you don't write. Like, so if you ultimately want to win the Booker Prize, the guys who win the Booker Prize, if they've just written one story, they've won it. No, like 20 years, 30 years of writing, right? And that's a great example of that. So if you just lower your ego and go, no, I'm just going to write something. Okay. Well, then you're off to the races and you can start doing something. I often speak to gents sometimes. It's not a common thing, but sometimes in the program, some of them are like, you know what, I've always thought about maybe setting up my own and doing something, but I don't know what to do. And they've got this grand idea that they need to quit the job and, burn all the bridges and it's follow your passion. That's an absolute load of bollocks. For the guys at our stage of life, the age we are, with the responsibilities we've got, it's reckless, right? So therefore, no, I can never do something myself. No, like you can't necessarily quit everything and go and do your dream project. But like, what's the smallest thing you could do around that to start to plan for it and to start to look at it? And when we break it down like that, well, then you've got a work stream there where you're working on it. So rather than thinking, I'm never going to be able to do that, I'll have to work for the man for the rest of my life. No, there's little bits we can do and we can work towards. And so you can take that mindset and break it down to anything. But it's just a part of it's about actually parking your ego to be able to go, you know what, this is possible. And it's the same with the exercise is a super common one with a lot of guys. And as you know, I'm not a fitness coach. It's not just exercise, but I believe if anyone wants to thrive, feel great, look great, we have to do some sort of movement, right? And I'm trying to get time to go to the gym in the evening. Okay, but therefore I can't do exercise. Okay, what about the morning? Well, I'm too tired. What's your evening look like? Oh yeah, well I'm drinking and I'm knackered. Okay, well maybe we address that. And well, I can't spend an hour in the gym in the morning. Could you do 5 push-ups when you get out of bed? Of course I can. Well, there we go. so like, and if we and again, we're kind of repeating the concept, but it's important. Like that then applies anyway. And if you show yourself that, you're like, well, where else could I do this? And so that kind of mindset sort of
Hmm.
trickles down into other areas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've seen it in my writing, seen it in fitness, seen it in nutrition. Another one of my hobbies is photography. And again, I was telling myself, unless my pictures feature like on the front page of the Times, wasting my time. But no, actually, it's really just a good mindful activity. Go for a walk, take my camera with me, get some steps done, and just appreciate the world around you. It's really quite nice. You just that's just brilliant. It's just say parking that ego and stopping that all or nothing mindset,
Yeah.
and just
But then ultimately, you're doing something that you enjoy doing. Like everything doesn't have to be at the service. I don't believe anyway. Maybe some people would disagree with this, but it doesn't have to be at the service of, oh, I'm doing this to achieve X or for professional development. I'm taking photos because I like taking photos. I'm writing because I like writing. If something comes of it, great. But like, having that as a thing that you enjoy doing just because, I think is okay, and just taking that pressure off yourself. Because then you've got something that you're there and you enjoy doing.
yeah.
Um,
And I was going to say, look, actually, with that, it's what's amazing is the ripple effects it have. Because if I'm going out for a walk with my camera, my daughter often says, "Can I come with you?" And she'll pick up her camera, and we'll go for a walk together and do that. When I'm exercising at home doing a hit session, I stop saying to my daughter, "Look, do you want to exercise with me?" She'll just get up and do like the last 5 minutes with me, and it's just role modeling that behavior. If I wasn't exercising, if I wasn't writing, then she wouldn't be picking up a pen either. I can tell her, but she just won't. Yeah, it's just that. Yeah.
Totally. It's the whole practice what you preach. And so, and say, oh, to your kids, you should be healthy, you should eat healthy, you should exercise, and you should be mindful and go for walks and get fresh air. If you're glued to your phone, drinking, eating shit, and not moving your body, well, there's a complete incongruence between what you're saying and what you're doing. Now, if you do all those things, your kids don't want to copy you because for the moment, your daughter's 7, my kids are still pretty young, 9, 7, and 4. Like, you're the hero. There'll be a point at which that changes, but like at the moment you are, and so they model you and your behavior and what they want to do. And if they see you doing that stuff, they'll want to do it. And if they see good stuff, it's good stuff. It's bad stuff, bad stuff. But then that feeds into what we said right at the start, where feeling in your best, feeling energized, fulfilled and enjoying life. Well, if you're doing things that serve you, that you feel good, and then the people that you love are starting to model their behavior on that, that feels great from your self-esteem because you're kind of showing up as the person or the man or the dad that you know that you want to be. And that's negative, not because you're saying stuff, because you're doing stuff. And then when you see them doing that, not because you said something because they want to copy daddy, that feels great.
Yeah. And I've had it, Luke, actually, with, because I know the immediate takeaway after I finished the 8 weeks with you was that my energy levels just felt really, really high after I finished with you. And just when I went back to work, obviously, I never stopped working, but
Yeah.
when after the session and I was back at work and things, and it's just even though I wasn't trying to do this, but people told me that my energy felt better, felt different. And so my client pipeline just went higher and higher and higher because I was just showing up to meetings differently. I've always been pretty good at winning work, but just got better and better at it. And I wasn't doing anything different in a work context,
Yeah.
showing up with more energy, more enthusiasm, and 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 then people respond to it in a different in a different way. And that was really noticeable, and that's carried on over the last couple of years.
But that's amazing. And that's often a byproduct of, again, working on yourself because being energized, feeling good, being engaged, that's an emergent property of what you are doing and not doing. Now, all the guys that I work with, like we said, or most are pretty successful, doing very well for themselves. And they would say that actually that's all fine. And most of the time when I speak to gents, it's not the work bit that's really driving it. Sometimes it is, but more often than not, it's like wanting better at home or unhealthy, the usual story. Life's overwhelming and, it's all great on paper, but I'm not depressed, but I'm not getting divorced, but all those kind of narratives. And so, okay, we want to address this. But the work bit's like, well, work's okay. But then, like we said about the person A and person B, you do some work on yourself, you start to feel better. All of a sudden, I'm performing better at work and people are saying I'm better and my clients seem more happy. And like, why is that? Like, it's because as an emergent property, you are feeling better, more energized. And to think that that's not going to have a bearing on it. Now, I know for you and for most of the guys, that's not a core driver, but you do this stuff in one area of life, it's going to have a positive knock on it. And it does not surprise me in any way that you were getting better deals, you were seeing more clients, everyone was commenting because you're generally feeling better. There's a phrase, it comes from recovery actually, which is like, just to be crass, if you meet 20 cunts in a day, you're the cunt, right? Now, I'm not saying, by the way, Kamal, I'm not calling you cunt, by the way, but the concept there is because of how you're feeling, everyone else seems like they're after you, right? And so it can feel like, oh, life's coming to get you. When we do some work on ourselves and start to feel better, all of a sudden everything feels fine and so there's no longer dickheads everywhere. Well, what's changed? Nothing. It's you and your perception and ability to deal with it. Now, that rather crass concept applies here insofar as, well, actually, all of a sudden everything seems to be going better and I'm working better and everything's performing. Like, yeah, because you feel better and your perception and how you're doing it is better. But then because of how you're behaving, the energy that you're giving off, that has a ripple effect with everybody else, right?
Yeah, it really does, and it's really been noticeable. And there have been moments. I mean, I won't lie and say that 2 years have all been plain sailing, but
That's how life
obviously
works.
yeah, life has its ups and downs. But I suppose what your program did is always given me that sort of foundational framework. So when things are not in a great place for whatever reason, you just go back and think, right, let's break it down to basics. Wake up, 30 push-ups, 30 sit-ups. Um, you know, what's my steps looking like? They've gone a bit rubbish recently, so let's get back into that, and then that gets you back on track. Or at least probably it gets me back on track, and then it's always something I go back to, I default to.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
like,
so I interrupted you. What are you going to say? Come on.
let's say just for the moment, like just before we started this conversation, I just came back from a 4.5 mile run, and I thought basically I had a 40 minutes free in my calendar. So what can I do? I can either sit here on my phone or just pelt it outside and just
Nice.
and do that. And so it's just given that sort of mindset, and that comes from waking up a few weeks ago and starting doing those push-ups and getting back onto that track. So it's just
And for me, that's ultimately, I think, what we want as a core part of stuff, is to be resilient. Because to think that life isn't going to do that, for anyone listening, I'm giving the finger. Like, life's going to challenge you. Bad things are going to happen. Good things are going to happen. And ultimately, I think we want to be able to be resilient to what happens. Now, to think we're like robots or automatons and we're just perfect all the time, absolute nonsense. That's not how things work. But if you've got a framework of how to operate, feel, behave, look, and there's constituent behaviors built into that, and you've done work on yourself to understand how you tick, now life can knock that off course because it does. But you've done that work, and you can't unknow that or undo that. And so at some point, you go, hold up a second, what's going on? I feel a bit shit. Everyone's pushing it. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Right, what's going on? Oh, well, my exercise has drifted. Phone use has crept up a bit because I'm really busy. I'm not journaling and clearing my thoughts. I'm a bit snappy at home. Okay, well, we know why that's happened. Right, so what are we going to do? And you may have built up to doing regular runs and exercise and everything's all great and it feels like it's gone over. Well, okay, well, tomorrow I can get up, do 10 push-ups, have a cold shower, and make sure I'm not on my phone until I enter the office. Boom, there we go. Straight away, back to it. And you made some commitments and you can own it. And so it's just being able to stop and take stock and do that. And it's not about being perfect and like, again, like I say, being a robot, but I think it's being able to recognize when things are drifting and just course correct, right? And then you're back in the room.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's exactly how it's been for me, Luke. It's just that it's been that ability to course correct, get back onto it, and just go back, break it down to those fundamental principles, and look about what am I eating? What am I, what's my activity like? Am I on my phone when I should be being present elsewhere? And then boom, and then suddenly so everything caught. Then one thing feeds into the other.
Yeah, because once you can see that, then you can change it, and that's one of the things I think when I first worked with gents, and I see a lot is that we're often blind to the things that we're doing that are impacting us, or maybe subconsciously we might know, but like we don't see it. And so some of the obvious things when you're doing them, once you point it out, you're like, well, of course, but like you can't see them. Now, if you've done that work, you can do that. Now, they will drift back in, but you can know and go, oh, hold up a second, this is what's going on. And then you can correct it. It's the most common one I hear is that, oh, I'm not a morning person. Well, okay. So, and I'm lazy and I'm lazy in the morning. Well, you built a business, or you're really senior there. That doesn't sound very lazy. So why are you being lazy in the morning? Well, actually, because I'm tired. Okay, why are you tired? Oh, well, I went to bed at midnight. Oh, why did you get to bed at midnight? Well, I didn't really sort of say to my team they couldn't email me, so I got this email through like late when I was trying to put the kids down. That stressed me out. The missus shouted at me because I wasn't paying attention to the kids. Then I thought, fuck it, and a half bottle of wine. Then I saw this other email and I didn't sleep well. Okay, so are you lazy? Or is your evening routine a bag of shit? Your work-life boundaries, stress management, sleep hygiene, technology use, relationship with alcohol. That's not necessarily someone's lazy. That's just someone's evening's a shit show. Perhaps we address some of that, then your morning's going to go better. Okay. Now, as we both know, even if you do that, you're out in the wild for 2 years, there'll be times when that evening still becomes a shit show because life's happened. But you now know what you need to do. So you can go, well, hold a second, I am knackered because last night was a shit show for a multitude of reasons. Right, what are we going to do today? And there we go. And you're off. And that's it. It's not like it's perfect all the time, but because you've done it and you know, you can do that. Often we just get stuck in those negative feedback loops of doing those things and not really seeing what's going on.
No, absolutely, Luke. I mean, you just summed up what it's been like for me for the last 2 years. It's always getting better, and it's always obviously has its ups and downs. Say life doesn't come straight, but everything trends upwards in the right direction.
In the right direction.
Yeah.
Kamal, I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you're a busy man and you've got lots going on. I love the fact that you did a nice run just before the call. Before we get off, any sort of closing thoughts or comments for anyone listening out there? If anything, what we've been discussing resonates.
Yeah. I think the biggest, I mean, if I step back and think 2 years, I mean, if you step away from all the specific coaching you gave, the biggest takeaway from me was a bias to action.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes you will get the result you want, sometimes you won't. But you will absolutely not get the result unless you don't take that step. I remember once I was pinging you on LinkedIn, wasn't I? Because I put myself forward for an opportunity at work and I didn't get it. But it was fine. I was happy to put myself forward, and you came me back with some quote saying, "Yeah, you put your hat in the ring. You're the one sort of dusty, but you're going to come up stronger from this."
And Roosevelt quote that, the man in the arena.
Yeah, that's something I really just show up and do things, and things will. You say like not everything will go your way, but things will get better if you just keep showing up and keep trying, and that's what that's really that's my biggest takeaway is that bias to action. That's my mantra now, really.
I love that phrase, bias to action. It's a great one because if there's no action, nothing changes, and so you're technically safe because you're not going to risk anything going wrong, but you never move forward. Whereas actually, if bias towards action, sometimes it'll be great, sometimes it won't be. But if it isn't, and we've got the right mindset, we can learn from it. And if it is, fantastic. So it's a win-win if you let it.
Yeah, exactly. And I see that through fitness, as we discussed. I see it through work because I've won a few more clients now just by reaching out to them, which I probably wouldn't have done before for these
Mhm.
particular ones, because I thought,
Yeah.
I've got, maybe I don't have the expertise for what they particularly want, but actually I can just show up and have a conversation and a coffee with them. And then, boom, some of them haven't taken me forward and some have. But that's like a net gain over the effort. So that's just really what I try and manage. That was my biggest takeaway from this. So that's what I'm going to steal. I'm going to steal that kind of concept of just bias towards action. I already say it with my teams at work, just show up, just do it. And
Yeah, do the thing. Yeah, what is it? It's the JFDI. Just fucking do it.
yes, yeah,
No, I love that, and I think actually thinking about what you do as a person as coaching, right? But as having a fundamental principle as to like, well, and so that as a heuristic, you can play that out and go right. And if you're feeling a bit down in the dumps, and life has happened and something's happened, you go right. Bias to action. What am I doing here? Am I being a victim? Am I actually? What am I letting get out of my control? And then if you just think that, you can go, okay, what can we do? And it's sort of having these little things where, well, not little, powerful things to be able to sort of pull yourself around is really, really important because you can. That's how you can course correct, right? Very
yeah.
quickly.
And I think the other thing I was saying, this is not to sound negative, but unfortunately, the world has some haters in it. So when you become a better, like, you use the phrase Kamal 2.0 and then,
Yeah,
or
that's
you're
it. Yeah.
2.0, when you become that 2.0 movement, there are some people who aren't going to support you on that.
Mhm.
They're more comfortable thinking of you in that, in that
In a
previous
different way.
version.
Yeah, exactly.
But this program really gives you that resilience to think, actually, if that's what they're not worth keeping, I'm going to,
No. Yeah, well, because you're elevating yourself, and some people don't like it because they like you in a certain way in a certain box, and you're changing, and that can be disquieting for another person because it maybe highlights areas with them that they want to address. And so, but actually, if you're feeling cool and comfortable in yourself, your self-esteem's in a good place because you're working on yourself and you're just doing it, as we said. Well, then you're cool with that. You're like, oh, that's a shame that they feel like that, but I can get on with my life.
yeah, exactly. And so it's been all that kind of resilience and that bias towards action is something you really is my takeaway over the 2 years.
Awesome.
As far as basically the sum of all these little wins is life is getting better. And well, life was always good, but life is better. And I'm confident that the next 12 months, when we speak again, life will be better still.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's what it's all about, and I
yeah,
absolutely love it, and I'm really glad to hear that, and that's again why I like to have these conversations, Kamal, because it's nice to hear and see talk to my old clients, but see that the work that you do lasts, and you can build on it, and you can keep building that. Notwithstanding life has challenges, but you can take those fundamentals and run with it in the wild and in real life, right? Which is what this whole point's about. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting. I really appreciate you taking the time, Kamal, and I know anyone
anytime.
listening, we got a lot out of this conversation, so thank you. If anyone is watching or listening and they're interested in seeing about how I can help with them, drop me a note in the comments or drop me a DM. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Cheers.